Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and in today's video it's all going to be about thinking before you flank, as well as also building on something that I've really been trying to hammer home over the last couple of weeks, which is thinking through about where you should go at the start of the battle depending on your tank type. Now, adding on to what I was talking about with the FV215B, today I am going to be playing in an absolute beta tank, at least with regards to power creep and win ratio, and that is the T-62A. While this was once the crown jewel of the Soviet medium tank line, now the 430U, the Object 140, outshine this vehicle. Accordingly, seeing on the enemy team list that they had an auto-loading light tank versus a regular light tank on our team, or a wheeled vehicle, and they had a TVP versus an SDB-1, and I didn't think that our Batchat was going to commit to the hill. I didn't want to do the rush up there. Now, when I'm playing other vehicles which are better, which are faster, which are kind of stronger with regards to their hull armor, maybe they've got better alpha damage in a vehicle like the SDB-1 now, packing good damage per minute as well, I might try and push for the hill. But when I'm playing in, should we say, mediocre vehicles, it's sometimes about playing more of a support role and trying to play to your tank's strengths. And for a T-62A, it's about having good turret armor and a really quite decent sniping gun with decent aim time and accuracy as well. So by avoiding the hill at the beginning of the game, they had a Char-Future 4 as well, I'm just noticing, although we did have one as well. What I'm trying to suggest is that pushing the hill, no matter how much I feel that mine's is a hill that I'm willing to die on to be able to try and win the game. I felt in this scenario, considering the vehicle that I was playing and the enemy team, that it wouldn't pan out in my favor. And I thought that I had more chance to be able to win this game by using the turret armor of this vehicle and working the 5 degrees of gun depression positions that you see me using as we're slowly advancing and kind of dipping our toes into the bath rather than just jumping straight in and trying to take the hill right from the get-go. That I thought that I could be more successful in the T-62A. Not just for myself individually with regards to the damage and the spotting that we're going to be able to achieve, but also for my impact for the team, because I thought that I could be more influential in the mid to late battle by preserving my HP. So in this scenario, by getting to the middle of this map, from the southern side, artillery like to hang out in the west, and you actually get really good vision up onto that hill where the FV4005 is. And by taking this western flank, we've just forced probably the most dangerous tank destroyer, at least with regards to alpha damage, in the game off the hill. We've stopped them from being able to shoot across to the east, maybe engage the IS-7 that was there, and they've lost also 1,300 hit points by the looks of it, and close to losing them all as well, now down to 51. In this situation as well, we're getting some vision on the WT Panzer IV at the back, and we're harassing this T-54. And that is just a case of tier 10 versus tier 9. There wasn't too much that T-54 was going to be able to do against us. Now, I'm not the one spotting the Jagdtiger, it looks like the Batchat is on the other flank. But seeing how the WT Panzer IV has been spotted out now, he's also going to leave the sniping plateau up there, drop down, effectively sacrifice their vehicle. Bit of a panic situation there, but when you're in a glass cannon tank, sometimes you won't realize there are actually some quite defensive locations. Now, whether or not the Jagdtiger pushed his platoon mate out from those defensive positions or not, I couldn't quite tell from this angle. One thing I can tell, however, is that Jagdtiger, irrelevant of whether he was pushing the WTL Panzer IV, definitely slaps me for a big old chunk of hit points there, 578. And it's definitely why the T-62A is one of the worst tier 10 medium tanks, at least with regards to its win ratio. It is still capable of some great things, as we're going to be seeing in the double helping of gameplay of this video. But it's more of a tank that these days you have to be calm and collected, and you have to give conscientious thought as to where you're going to take the vehicle, and not play it loose like you can some of the other more dominant medium tanks in the game. So I'm happy with my impact here. We neutralized the enemy tank destroyers. We're now going to start to pick apart the enemy artillery, and we also managed to get some decent damage enough to weaken the vehicles that were going up onto the hill at the beginning of the game. And so what I'm trying to suggest in this video is to make sure you think before you flank, and also to think what flank it's best to take your vehicle what works for a very powerful vehicle at its tier and of its type, even if it's top tier, as you're going to be all the time in your tier 10 tanks, is not going to work for the lesser vehicles. And you can use that when you're trying to grind up tech trees and you're playing weaker tanks. Try to play as support vehicles and don't try and take positions that you feel you don't stand a good chance in. Of course, one thing I'd like to clarify is that if you can try and communicate with your team and try and get them on the same side to be able to achieve better things together, totally do that and try and use those first 30 seconds to be able to communicate with your team and come together, and you're going to be able to achieve so much more. It can be a bit of a challenge, right? But don't give up trying, because when it does happen, oh, it just feels so awesome. Unlike that shot against the SDB-1, as we missed one of our first shots against his hull, but doesn't really matter because we get to pick up the 5th kill of the game there against the SDB-1. Next up, you see me loading in on Live Oaks, and you see what I'm doing right here. I'm trying to figure out which set of equipment I want to use. Do I want to use vertical stabilizers or do I want to use coated optics? Something that has been really helping my play recently when I've been trying to play vehicles again and again is to really dial in those 2 different equipment setups and choose depending on the map type. So when I'm playing on Live Oaks, I always think about dip, dip, dip. He who controls the dip controls Live Oaks is how I feel when I'm playing this map. However, again, just like we did the other day in the FV215B, when you see the entirety of your team making their way towards the north, and importantly, you see a Chieftain and you see a Kranvang on the enemy team, and maybe even a VZ55 who's in a platoon with a 277, do you think it's really going to be the most sensible option for a vehicle with 5 degrees of gun depression, with only with a mouse in support, to go and try and win the all-important dip? No, I don't think so. So instead, we change our plan. We let our mouse know, hey mate, maybe you shouldn't just drive to the front. Maybe take more of a slightly defensive position and you can try and slow the enemy down, or maybe try and use your armor more effectively, and instead go and try and help the team to be able to at least win one flank or try and add to their damage they're going to be able to achieve there. Pushing the north on this map is something that quite often happens when you're playing the ranked game mode. When you're playing ranked on this map, I'd say the majority of the time, the vast majority of the time, it becomes just a fight to see who is going to win the dip. And when you have these all tier 10 games, while they don't exactly play out as if they're ranked, when you've got obviously a decent platoon on the enemy team, I mean, you have to be if you've got a Chieftain, right? Then they're going to play that map in that fashion. I've quite often seen Live Oaks 1, especially inside ranked, where you send maybe a couple of vehicles out towards the western flank and then you win that while still managing to hold the dip. Now clearly the enemy team are not messing around, because that platoon saw that the dip was uncontested. We probably got spotted over towards our flank, and so now they're already out of the dip and pushing through that flank. Luckily, that mouse has gone to the back, and it looks like he's got some tank destroyers in support, as well as a medium tank over there. And while their EBR is racing forwards to try and light up the mouse, to try and spot them for his team, we're just going to have to see how effective that vision is going to be. And unfortunately, it looks like it is, as the Object 140 destroys the Stridsvagn 103B, and the Progetto 65 also manages to whittle down some hit points on this flank as well. That mouse looks like he's just got a leopard behind him, and it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So what I've decided to do in this situation is, should I keep plowing forwards against probably the medium tanks that are going to be situated up in this location, or maybe even at the buildings, or even at the back towards the K12 area, and going to have a good line of fire against us? Or should we instead play the T62A to its strengths, which is this kind of like support medium tank that still isn't afraid of making a push when the situation dictates that it should? So by falling back into this scenario, even the 5 degrees of gun depression that we have will not stop us from getting a few shots in here. And wow, I guess I'm happy I took the vertical stabilizers on this tank with the kind of dispersion on the move that we have there. Putting in multiple rounds into the Object 140 doesn't look like I quite managed to hit the EBR, but now this TVP is just in such a juicy location. We're kind of turning it round on the enemy team from this central position, with an AMX-30B just on my right above me, now shooting the EBR 105. We're slowly reducing their vision, but oh, that's scary. 2 very meta heavy tanks in a dip working as a platoon. But before we can just have to worry about the platoon there, we're going to still get some crossfire now against the Progetto, who was up in that location, probably worried that they weren't getting stuck into the game, and instead has decided to progress across. And just look how good the T-62A is at these kind of distances. Decent accuracy, and still has 2,900 base DPM. When you equip it with a gun rammer and with vents and good crew, oh, it does feel absolutely awesome. Okay, so having dealt with the Progetto, I'm looking at this chieftain, I'm realizing that with the game neck and neck right now, unless we manage to fight this chieftain, this is never going to work. So I'm looking at the AMX-30, I'm just wondering, can I try and work with this medium to turn this game in our favor? And seeing that the chieftain just got hit by probably the VZ-55, I'm going to ask the AMX-30 to come with me. The AMX-30 immediately presses affirmative, so let's go on a bit of a wolf pack here. This is two of arguably the worst tier 10 medium tanks in the game going after the chieftain. And luckily, with a bit of a crossfire from the Progetto, that means that we managed to shut them down. I say thank you to the AMX-30B, but unfortunately he stayed up on the ridgeline. He should have come into the dip with me. But I will not let you down, Mr. AMX-30. I will get revenge for you against this VZ-55. Knowing that the Czechoslovakian heavy tank is reloading after having vanquished my AMX-30, I can track this player multiple times, lock them in position, surround them with some pixel-perfect plays, and shut them down with a shot to their weak point. And just like that, a big thank you to the AMX-30B. I'm not sure if this is your anonymized name, but your name is Viseni. It was an absolute pleasure to get through that situation with you, and unfortunately, you were the fall guy there. I know how that feels. Next time, don't sit up on the ridge. Come down into the dip and go hold down against your opponents, and maybe both of us will be able to get through. What I was feeling in this situation was just the absolute gift that had been given to me by the AMX-30 to enable us to get rid of both of those vehicles, and suddenly all of the vision that the enemy team had with those hold down high DPM behemoths is completely gone because of the flanking play that we initiated and the communication that we had with the AMX-30B. Having now dealt with that part of the map, now it just becomes that beautiful flanking play that you can have in medium tanks with decent camo, decent accuracy, and enough view range to boot. Obviously my view range would have been a little bit better if I'd taken coated optics on this tank, but as you all know, in World of Tanks now, with field mods, with vents, and as I'm using bounty vents on this tank, or even if you just put vents inside the bonus slot, if you've got good crew skills like situational awareness and recon, you can get enough view range even without coated optics, especially to see heavy tanks. I'm not going to see the STB-1 in such a clear-cut area, but there we go. Right behind a Super Conqueror, looking for the ultimate position where I'm exposing as little of my armor to the other vehicles as possible. And there you go, our fourth kill of the game, now up to 4,800 damage. We're also having 2,500 combined between our spotting and also our tracking. So it doesn't look like I'm spotted anymore. The Kranvang's turning his attention to other vehicles, and I'm just trying to loop a shell here over the ridgeline, but it wasn't quite to be until we managed to get him into the side of the turret. And I was feeling pretty darn happy about this game. If I wasn't focused, if I was lazy, if I wasn't thinking about the way that I was playing, I would have just gone into the dip and then probably blamed my team as to why they all went into the town. However, at least in the last few days, maybe these daily YouTube videos and playing this game pretty much most days right now is helping me out. But I've been playing with a lot more focus. I've been playing a lot calmer, and it has been resulting in some of my my best rounds of World of Tanks that I've had, at least in a long time. And I would challenge all of you who are trying to get a little bit more from your game over this winter period to also think about the positions that you're going into. Just because you've been YOLOing the dip in all of your fast medium tanks, when you slow it down and you play something like a T-62A, it's definitely not going to be the right thing to do, in at least this situation. Analyzing the enemy team list in those first 30 seconds will be absolutely pivotal in your ability to make the correct decisions, and those will result in what the outcome is for both yourself and also your team. So an ace tanker and a high caliber here for our first game on mines for our 1,243 base experience and 5,600 damage. There probably wouldn't be an ace tanker in most of the tier 10 mediums, but most tier 10 mediums aren't packing a sub 46% average win ratio, at least in the last 30 days. And our subsequent game on Live Oaks, we get a top gun, but no high caliber this time. And that's because there was a VZ55 on our team that casually knocked up 8,200 damage. Well, I guess my 5,574 pales in comparison. However, the 2,500 spotting, in addition to securing the kills and picking up a top gun, actually nets us 25% more experience than the 8,000 damage dealt, probably because the player wasn't spotting for themselves, and so that once again gives us an ace tanker. And even with resupplying our premium consumable, I don't think we fired many, if any, gold rounds this game, and so we make a profit, albeit with a premium account. So to conclude, once again, as I said with the FV215B, when you're clearly not playing the most meta tanks, sometimes you have to be a little bit wily and just diving into the meta positions on the map. As I bang my elbow on the desk, right on my funny bone, I must maintain my composure. Okay, as I was saying, when you're playing not the most meta tanks, don't just go and run into those meta locations where you'll be meeting those meta players with their meta tanks like the Kranvang, the Chieftain, and the VZ55. They're just going to chew you up and spit you out. Of course, don't shy away from an opportunity to take out the most important tanks as well in those positions if you feel that you can obviously assist your teammates, or you're that confident in yourself, even in a vehicle like the T62A. But just think about hanging around, maybe providing an alternative line of fire like we did in these couple of games, and then maybe you'll be the MVP later on in the battle. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you're all enjoying this kind of more in-depth look at tactics and the meta, rather than just the big bam boom high damage Kolobanov's games, even though I enjoy commentating on those as well. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, but if you hate it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments what you think about the state of vehicles like the T62A, and how do you draw the line between situations where you just got to get stuck in early and those situations where you've maybe got to let the game develop a little bit before you jump in. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.